JetBlue and Spirit Airlines filing for an expedited appeal of a court ruling that blocked their $3.8 billion merger. We're tracking shares of Spirit and JetBlue as on the heels of this announcement. This comes, of course, as JetBlue had already reported quarterly results. The airline issuing downbeat first quarter guidance. Let's bring in Dan McKenzie, Seaport Research Partners, to discuss more. Okay, Dan, just to go back to this filing, because the court now is going to have to consider, and ultimately what's being put forward for this filing, the argument here made by the companies is that in the end, they need this to be reversed because it disregards benefits of the transaction to the majority of the flying public. They say the timing also coming up, the court may have no opportunity to review the decision because the merger agreement includes an outside closing date of July 24th, 2024. So what is the likelihood that this appeal gets expedited and gets reversed?
Yeah, that's a great question. Morning. Thanks for having me. A couple of points related to that. First of all, the appeal is really a formality of what investors already widely expected. And these, appeals in general can take 1 to 1.5 years to decide. And, these are two airlines with billions in CapEx that they're trying to decide. So from a corporate planning perspective, there really is urgency. Both of these airlines have yet to report a profit in the post-pandemic world. And so they really need an expedited decision. There is precedent for this, but as far as, I'm going to defer to the legal experts on the probability of them actually getting this expedited. But, at least from where I sit, I think the airlines have a really good case. And, from you talked about the customer perspective. And yeah, the one thing I'll point out is just doing this for 23 years, the airlines that perform best are the airlines that are the most profitable. And these, it's when you're losing money, it's very hard to provide a competitive product. But I'll just stop there and let you redirect me.
So, Dan, when it comes to what exactly this outcome could look like, obviously the future of this deal extremely uncertain, to say the least, very much that takeover in limbo. Say it does not get overturned and this ruling stands. What does JetBlue look like, and what happens to Spirit? Lots of questions about whether or not they're even going to be able to survive.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. This morning, we really got our first look at what Spirit as a standalone airline is going to look like from JetBlue management. And as a standalone airline, things are a little tough right now. These guys have announced $300 million in revenue initiatives. They deferred $2.5 billion of CapEx, and the airline that we're going to get is an airline that's going to be growing a lot slower than what it has historically guided to. It's historically guided to mid to high single digits, and we don't know exactly what that growth rate is going to look like. But management obviously is trying to reshape the cost structure of the airline by reducing that CapEx, and by reshaping that cost structure, it hopes to get to sustained profitability, and at least that's what it's arguing it can do. And of course, we need to reverse the free cash flow losses. So basically, the airline's losing $200 to $400 million in free cash flow a year, and we need the airline to generate cash in order to pay for these planes.
And so going forward from here, the survival of Spirit, but also now JetBlue, what is their strategy going forward?
So JetBlue as a strategy, really has a couple of core strategic strengths, and its biggest calling card is really its presence in the New York City market. That's the most revenue lucrative market in the country, and that's 50% of JetBlue's flying. The problem is we need, New York has been slow to recover post-pandemic, and the other calling card that JetBlue has is Florida. And of course, Florida is where everybody went during the pandemic to work remotely, and all the airlines chase demand there. That's roughly 30% of JetBlue's revenue picture. And that's a part of the network where we're seeing a lot of oversupply. So I went into this earnings season really looking for a choppy flight path for the full year. So at least from where I sit from JetBlue, I'm modeling margin contraction in the first half of the year and margin expansion in the back half of the year. And that's a similar story for all the airlines under coverage. So at least from where I sit, JetBlue, the losses are narrow enough that it can reverse those. It's just, because of a couple of adverse legal decisions, specifically the NEA, it's having to reinvent itself. And that's proving to be a really painful process for JetBlue, in the near term here. But once it gets on the other side of this, of reinventing itself in a post-NEA world, shifting away from, more corporate demand, shifting more to leisure demand. That's part of the management strategic focus here. I think JetBlue ultimately gets there. It's just a painful ride on the way. And this stock probably is just not going to work in the near term.
Yeah, their new CEO, Joanna Garrity, really has her work cut out for her, really trying to right the ship at JetBlue. Again, shares under a tremendous amount of pressure over the last year, off another 3.5% here this morning. Dan McKenzie, thanks so much.
Thank you.